Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Anything OU podcast. We have a very, very special guest. You know him extremely well, Mr. Chris Plank. Man, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me back as a three-time
Yeah.
participant on the
Repeat
Anything
offender.
podcast. Three-peat offender. Pumped to be on, man. Thanks for having me on what is pretty wild week ahead of us and a pretty wild season as well for softball.
No, absolutely. I'm ready to get it going. Like, I'm excited.
You should be.
I'm
They're really good.
Yeah, that's the rumor. Yeah. The rumor in town is that they're pretty good. That they've done some things. So
they've done a few things. Yeah.
So. They've done a really nice job in taking what was a team that's been debated as one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah.
And now you come back and that's your baseline. It's like, hey, guess what? Last year's team was considered the greatest of all time. What are you going to do to top that? And they go and they get four of the most high-profile transfers. You bring in four incredible newcomers. You've got 12 players coming back. So and all 12 of those contributed in some way, shape, or form. So it's a really, really exciting season.
Yeah. No, 100%. So before we get into the new season, kind of give us your recap of last year. Obviously, we got the repeat and everyone's super excited about this next team, but give us your recap of the previous.
Yeah, it's domination. I mean, you're talking about a team that I think our number by the end of the year was well over double-digit games that they didn't play because of the innings lost for run rules. So, in other words, for those of you that are fans of the Anything OU podcast and haven't necessarily followed softball to the nth degree, if you're up by eight runs after 5 innings, it's ball game, and that happened a lot last year for Oklahoma. So a lot of run rules, a lot of impressive dubs, records being broken. It was a team that it's kind of funny. I was talking about this earlier and just thinking about 2022. They won the national championship in 21, the first season back, and they were a favorite, but they weren't like the favorite. Like a lot of people thought, after the off year with Florida State coming back, and in 21, Florida State was kind of the favorite, and maybe Washington was up there with some of the pitching, Gabby playing that they had, but Oklahoma was not necessarily. UCLA is always with Rachel Garcia. Oklahoma wasn't necessarily that favorite from the start of the season, and they kind of bullied their way through it in 21, right, going back 2 years ago after COVID, and just got an incredible pitching performance in the World Series from G. Juarez, and the rest was history. 22 is a season that stands out to me because they came in, as the preseason number one, and in years past, it's always the softball community would talk about Oklahoma. I know this sounds wild to say now, but the softball community would talk about OU, but it was always, Oklahoma's really good, but UCLA and everything that's going on in the SEC, once it gets to the postseason, there's just not going to be anything they can do about it. Last year was the first time whenever, you had a team that didn't play, like the chip on their shoulder was, no, we're the best. We're going to show you that we're worthy of preseason number one. So last year was fascinating because it was a team that embraced and welcomed the expectations. Could they develop a chip on their shoulder, Baker Mayfield style? Sure. Someone says one thing bad, and the next thing you know, oh my gosh, they're doubting us. I mean, Georgia was trying to say everyone doubted them after they won the national championship. But last year was one of those teams where from day one they said, bring it on. Talk about us as the number one team in the country. I think Jada and Tiare's attitudes had a lot to do with that. I think the leadership of Jocelyn had a lot to do with that. I think the infusion of a talent like Jordy Ball, which was, next level. And, you think about in this sport, which is growing with pitching depth charts and rotations. I mean, if you lose your number one in softball, you're probably not going to go very far in the postseason. Oklahoma lost their number one and still won the Women's College World Series. Yeah. I mean, that's saying something. So, yeah. And I could sit here. I don't know how long we're going tonight, but I could talk for 10 hours plus about last year and all the cool stories and all the incredible memories, from going to Hawaii and Jossie breaking the record to, even going back to the opening weekend. I'm thinking about it a lot because it was a year ago this week, and playing UC Santa Barbara, and then traveling to LA from that campus to LA in the middle of the Super Bowl that was going on, and playing UCLA and Mississippi State and winning those games. So it was from start to finish, and then to roll through a conference like they did. It was a really, really fun season. I think that it also showed how good the Big 12 is becoming, thanks to Texas and Oklahoma making the runs and Oklahoma State making the runs that they did in the postseason. But it was a year unlike any other, and one that we won't forget anytime soon.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories was the Jada Coleman walk-off against Tennessee.
Lost my voice.
Yep, that was incredible, and just the way we came back in that one, because everybody's like, "Uh-oh, early season, chink in the armor," but we were like, "No, this is who we are," and that kind of set the tone, for the rest of the year a little bit too. So
yeah, that's a really good point. That was a really good Tennessee team too. They had Rogers, their pitcher, got injured. Their center fielder is still one of the best players in the country heading into this season. They had an Oklahoma transfer that was finally taking advantage of her opportunities. So yeah, that's a game that in a setting like the Mary Nutter, right? And again, the Mary Nutter is like an early season World Series. You go there, but there's more than one game going on. You could be watching Oklahoma play UCLA, and over on another field, it's like Arizona versus Alabama, and I don't know if Alabama's been a Mary Nutter, but my point is you have these monster matchups. Oregon could be playing Tennessee on another field. It's just that's how big that weekend is. And Oklahoma has only gone through that weekend undefeated like twice. That tells you how tough that weekend can be. And then you have the Gasso v. Gasso matchup that Sunday. Listen, like I said, Drew, we get going on any of those games from last year, and it's an incredible run that they had. You talk about the Tennessee game being one of your favorites. That was so unique because we stayed in a different place in Palm Springs, and we were kind of removed from everything, but we were in this incredible resort, this golf resort. And I remembered, what we would do after games, we go play putt-putt, because they had like this little putt-putt course, and that's what we would do, because we're on a golf. We want to be able to feel like we're golfing, but then you'd go out and you take care of business, and it was just really a fun trip. I think
this year, if you stay there now, you can just bring your sticks with you and just go play a couple holes, after, before it gets dark.
It was that easy.
Yeah,
they got enough equipment that they got to fly with. So I think trying to snag my golf clubs on there might get me in a little bit of trouble. I don't want anyone to have to not go without a bat.
No doubt. So switching gears, we're talking about, that season recap, and now it springboards us into new year, same mindset. And if you guys have been watching, ESPN Plus has carried the Championship Mindset series, the first 2 episodes. Really good insight into kind of the mentality of the team, all that stuff like that. And now going into this year, you talked about the replacing Jocelyn Allo, replacing some of this other talent that we've had. Talk about the returning players and the glue that's still there, because a lot of people don't realize that we have a lot returning, even though we've lost a big bat in the lineup and probably the GOAT essentially. But yeah, just go into the new year, same mindset, and then the returners that we have.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty incredible to think about what they've brought back, right? You won back-to-back national championships, and you return your starting center fielder, your starting right fielder, your starting second baseman, your starting shortstop. Oh, by the way, you're returning your starting left fielder too, but you're moving her to the infield. You return your starting catcher and your ace pitcher. I mean, I can make this real easy. You're basically replacing your first baseman and your third baseman, and here's how you're doing it. You're moving your left fielder to third in Alyssa Brito, and you're bringing in an all Pac-12 all-world performer that's just a sophomore in Sydney Sanders. So they're really talented, Drew. They, you talk about what they're bringing back. I feel like sometimes we lose sight of how good Jada Coleman is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we talk enough about it. I could talk about her all day. And, I was talking to Patty for a show yesterday, and she started talking about Jada Coleman as a power hitter.
Yep.
Well,
and something, if people didn't catch your interview today, I know we're recording today, it's Wednesday, but you were on the show today talking to Aaron Miller and talking about how Jada Coleman was a shortstop coming out of high school, and she would play shortstop, and she could very well go into shortstop and be just as athletic as she is, and she's arguably the best outfielder in the country.
Well, and I think there's a chance she's the starting shortstop on this team next year. You know, that's how talented she is, and she always wanted to play. She wanted to be the first left-handed shortstop in Women's College World Series history. There's still a chance she might be. That's how good Jada Coleman is. Yeah. You know, obviously with Tiare Jennings back at second base, you have someone who's considered to be the top prospect in all of college softball. And again, I say this a lot with Jada, but it's not just and Tiare. It's not just those two individuals; it's their families, right? I could sit here. Tiare's family is incredible. You know, Jada's dad is a coach. Jada's mom is a highly respected, very successful high school coach. I mean, these are two women who have been in this game and love this game their whole life. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know, Drew. It's kind of tough because in all of this experience that you have coming back, I feel like I start mentioning one or two people and you just absolutely lose sight of, all right, well, you and I just talked about Jada and Tiare, but holy smokes, what about Kinsey Hansen, right? And we consider talking about Kinsey Hansen, and oh my gosh, we talked about Kinsey Hansen, and we haven't even brought up Grace Lyons, for goodness sakes, who is the captain. Wait a minute. We haven't talked about Riley Boone, who was the kind of fire starter. And in all of that, as I'm just talking about position people, I haven't talked about Jordy Ball, who could play some left field, and you know, Nicole May, who's coming back this year. So,
well, and what's cool about Jordy Ball is you may see her swing the stick this year too, which is going to be awesome. I'm here for that. So that's going to be great.
I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of Jordy Ball swinging the sticks this year. So, and I'm excited about that. I really am.
And you talk with returners and stuff. This gets lost too as well with the big transfers coming in. And you know, go ahead and talk about those, because you already hit on one, Sanders, but the other one's incredible.
Sydney Sanders is going to start at first base. She's the Arizona State freshman that came over. I haven't met Sydney yet. I saw her at breakfast on Sunday, but we didn't get a chance to meet. Carol's Kitchen, try it out. It's incredible in Norman. But we've got an incredible group of transfers, man. Alina Torres is going to factor in at both third and potentially in the outfield. She's a little bit more of an experienced player from Arizona State. Let's see what more can I say about Alina Torres? You know, here's somebody who could have stayed at Arizona State and been their maybe their cleanup hitter, maybe their number 3 hitter. Sydney Sanders would have been the other, and they both make the decision to come to OU. I mean, that's awesome. So you have Sydney Sanders and Alina Torres coming in from Arizona State. Then, to me, maybe one of the most exciting newcomers, is Haley Lee. If you were in for the regional, Haley Lee was the one for Texas A&M that was hitting bombs all over the place. Yep. And I'm telling you what, Drew, she's like our kind of person, right? She's got a little attitude to her. She's not afraid to talk a little smack. She's tatted up. I mean, she is awesome. And, you know, you bring these 3 alphas into a locker room that's full of alphas, and what have they all done? They've meshed because they have one common goal, one common theme, and that is they want to win a national championship. Yeah. So those are 3 of the 4. And then I feel like I don't talk enough about pitching guys, but you know, you add Alex Stracco to that mix in the circle. Mm-hmm. Now, Alex battled a little bit of an injury in fall ball. She struggled a bit in the she pitched real well in the exhibitions that they had, but when they got into the battle series, she kind of struggled a bit. But with Jen Rocha working with her and her getting 100% healthy, I really think that you're gonna see a pretty wildly spectacular season from Alex Stracco.
Well, and I think with her, I think it gets lost a little bit, because when you say she struggled against a really good lineup in the fall that she's not going to have to face too much of, you know. Yeah. So that's the beauty and a curse at the same time, because you get experience like no other in practice when you're facing a lineup and these kind of hitters that across the country is hard to match. So she's getting some really good experience. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're matching up on a inning by inning, day-to-day basis against someone who could probably start for any team in the country, and they might be the first person off the bench for OU. I mean, we could go down a laundry list of some of those players who may be coming off the bench for OU. Grace Green would probably be a DP for anyone in the country. Hannah Core would be the best outfielder that you would put on most teams in the country. Quincy Lilio's a little dinged up, but everyone wanted her coming out of high school. Same with Sophia Nugent. So it's kind of, and then on the pitching side of things, Stracco, May, SJ, Kirsten Deal, the freshman, and of course Jordy Ball could be number one anywhere else that they wanted to go, and they're here. So it's really cool to see.
So speaking of incoming, high school athletes, talk about these incoming freshmen.
Yeah, they got 4 newcomers that are fantastic. My personal, I think the name you're going to hear about the most is Jocelyn Erickson, a power hitter for Oklahoma named Jocelyn. Go figure. But she is really something special. Big lefty, big bat. She's got a chance to play some first. She's a left-handed catcher, so that's going to be unique. We're like 4 or 5 deep behind the plate this year, and Jocelyn's there, and she played a little left field in the Battle Series. I would imagine you're going to see her quite a bit. Kirsten Deal was the number 1 pitcher, number 1 recruit in the country, and I am so excited for her future. She's got a little Jordy. She got a little swag to her whenever she pitches, a little attitude, and she's a lefty. S.J. Guerin is near and dear to my heart because I went to college with her parents, so it's officially the moment where I feel old that someone whose parents I went to college with at the University of Tulsa, her mom was a fantastic player at TU. I'm excited, but she's going to redshirt this year. Coach has been pretty open about that. But let me tell you. Oh, so I mentioned 3 of them, right? Deal, Guerin, Erickson. I don't know how much Avery Hodge is going to play, but she is like Brianna Terang 2.0. She is this wiry lefty who can play any position. She's got this kind of almost Terang Pinley ability at the plate where she can just slap and lay down a bunt and hit it where you're not. Almost even I can compare it to all of our slappers. She's got a chance, I think, in certain situations to really help OU out this year. But listen, you think about this, and not to get too carried away on the freshmen, but Oklahoma is 2 years away from having a pretty wild roster overturn, right? Whenever TRA and Jada's class graduates, that's a lot, you know, and there's not a lot of people outside of Jordy Ball younger than TRA and Jada that are going to be starting.
Well, because that'll be 2, 3, people that won 2 or 3 championships for us that are graduating.
By the time they leave, they could have 4.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Oklahoma is going to be the favorite this year, and breaking news, they'll be the favorite next year too, right? I mean, as long as TRA Jennings and Jada Coleman are in a senior uniform with Jordy Ball, they're going to be considered the favorites. So there's going to be a lot in the future that you have to replace, and I think Coach Gasso is going to want to find places to get Hodge, to get Erickson, to get Hannah Core, to see what Quincy Lilio is going to be like when she's healthy. So, I love the new that's coming in for this.
Hey, but how crazy would it be to see another Jocelyn in a senior uniform break the record?
Well, I don't know if she's going to get to play as much as Jocelyn Allo did her freshman year, but she's got that kind of power. I mean, she really does. She's a special bat.
So when we're talking about players in general, just as going down the roster and everything like that, who do you think will be the impact player this year? Who do you think has that capability to kind of take, I don't want to ever say replace Jocelyn Allo because that's a tough act to follow, but somebody who's going to make a huge impact for this team and kind of be the leader and captain, if you will?
Well, in the literal sense, Drew, the captain's Grace Lyons. So keep an eye on Grace Lyons. But how about someone who gets talked about a lot but maybe not enough? Kinsey Hansen had an off year last year.
That's what I was going to say.
She's had, and she wasn't healthy. She's healthy. I just wrote about her for Boyd Street Magazine. I talk a lot about how much I dig some of these families. Dude, Kinsey's family is the coolest. Her grandpa is he's like a rock star, and he I think they live in Norman now. He's got a place here in Norman, so they're here to support her, and her brother's going to come play baseball at OU in a couple of seasons. So, yeah, she's beyond all the family stuff, right? She can rake, and I think she's got a chance to have a big bounce back here.
Well, and I think, too, she got a lot of confidence out of that championship series. You know, the
Sure.
big home run, and after you could tell that there was pressure on her, and that everybody around her seemingly was getting big hits and making big plays, but for her to elevate like that and to gain some confidence coming off the national championship series was huge for her, I think.
Yeah, and again, she wasn't healthy.
Nope.
But she said something to me that has stayed with me. I was always a wannabe good athlete, right? I thought I was good at baseball until I saw like Anthony Hermelin and Jacob Evans. I'm like, I'm not very good at baseball. But I always loved playing. And when Kinsey Hansen talked about, at her, and I bring that up because I can't relate to this. She goes, there were things that I could do where I would just be able to go out there, and even if I wasn't 100%, I could hit 500. I could still put the ball in play. And she goes, last year I was very much in my head because I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And so I think she's really, when I say comfortable in her skin, that's not, that's a true mental conversation. She's not overthinking things. She's really confident in who she is. And I think she can be, if someone who has had that much success can be a sleeper pick, she's my pick for player of the year. Yeah. And I think one other part of it is you look at some of the incredible seasons just in recent memory, Jocelyn, Lauren, even Shelby Pinley. They all had a season when you look back at their stats, you're like, wow, what happened here? Yeah. Right. And then the next thing it's like, oh, okay, there's 30 home runs. There's 28 home runs. So I think that this past season, because you know how many full seasons Kinsey Hansen has played since she's been on campus? One. COVID cut down her freshman year. Her second season was incredible, and then last year she had the injury which cost her a lot of time. I'm a big believer in Kinsey Hansen having a big year.
Yeah, well, and I can relate to that too a little bit because I remember facing injuries and stuff when I was a pitcher in college and stuff like that. When my shoulder went, it was hard because I tried to rehab, I tried to come back and do that, but I just wasn't the same. And I just, it's like you're in your head, you're like, I know I can do this, but to go out there and actually to do it and to get that response back again in your body is just, it's huge. And so for her to be healthy and to come back, man, I think she's going to come back with a vengeance this year. So I agree with you. Yeah.
It's a huge like mental game. So if, I also see her as coming back and having a huge year, and that's would speak volumes, not only about her character, but her as an athlete.
Yeah. So. And she's got her, I don't know how to best describe this, but her voice has changed. And by that, I mean, she doesn't sound different. She's just changed the way that she's leading. I think in the past, maybe it was more yelling at, let's go, and now it's more like, hey, we got this. And maybe more nurturing, maybe more understanding of what needs to be done. And I think she's really learned how to talk to and through people as opposed to at and like right in their face. I think that's been a big thing for her. I mean, I think the world of Kinsey Hansen, and I just think this is going to be a big time year for her. And not only that, what she can do offensively, but now that she's healthy, bro, she is a wizard behind the plate. Yep. So it's good to have her back.
Well, and it makes a difference when you have a veteran catcher back there that understands everything that's going on, especially on the softball field. Yeah, you talk about it in baseball as well, but a catcher on the softball field is even more important because
massive.
It's one of those to have a veteran catcher like that. You can't put a price on that one. So
absolutely.
But yeah, as we go into to the 23 schedule now, and there's some notable games, especially on the front end of the schedule and stuff like that. Talk through the schedule a little bit, especially the first half of this season and some of these key early season games.
Yeah, and I am cheating. I got a new laptop, so that way I'd be able to cheat without making it look too obvious. So this is not by any stretch of the imagination, by memory. Mark Campbell Invitational has become, I think, where Oklahoma's going to start their season. As long as they do this is the second year. I have a feeling Oklahoma's going to be a part of it. So on the 9th, Thursday, whenever we open up against Duke, we're opening up against Sid Romero, who is in another dugout for the first time since 2016. So I'm sure it's going to be kind of odd emotionally for some of us old heads like Coach and JT and maybe even some of the players that have been around for a while, because you think about it, Sid came in her freshman year and Sid played 16, 17, 18, 19. She was a volunteer assistant in 20, graduate assistant in 21, and, kind of the Tommy Boy plan, because when COVID came in, you kind of had to work around some classes. So she ended up spending 7 seasons at Oklahoma, right? That's big time. And now we're watching her in the dugout for Duke as an assistant coach, as their hitting coach. That's really cool. But you're going to play Washington on that Saturday night, big time matchup early on in the season. And then, again, thinking about that early schedule. So you got those 5 games in make sure I got that right. Yeah, 5 games, which are highlighted by the Washington matchup and the showdown with Stanford in Los Angeles. Then, guys, you turn around and what I think is going to become a little bit more of a norm when Oklahoma leaves the Big 12. Kansas does an early season tournament, and I think we'll go up there sometimes. But Baylor does one that's the Getterman Classic. They've done it for years.
Yeah.
And I think when we're in the SEC, it's an ICT trip to Waco. I could see us doing this more often. Obviously, a chance to play a Baylor and a non-con, and you get to play Army. And then you get around in week 3 to the Mary Nutter Classic. Gasso v. Gasso again, on a Saturday morning. That's going to be cool with the OU-Utah matchup. You got Texas A&M, and then everyone's going to be excited for UCLA whenever the Sooners play the Bruins on February 26th. So they've got a tournament that they're playing at Marita Hines Field, and it includes Kentucky. They went to Kentucky and beat them there last year. Kentucky's playing 2 games here. We're heading to Mississippi State to play in the Bulldog Invitational. And then what I think is 2 of the more marquee games are, just bear mentioning here, around all of the preseason tournaments. A home game, a midweek against Florida State, right? And then we're traveling to LSU. We're traveling to Baton Rouge on April 11th, Yep. So there's some massive non-conference games. I've called it the most challenging schedule I've seen the Sooners play maybe ever, at least in my tenure doing every game, every play-by-play game. This is the most amazing schedule they have, and I love how they're challenging themselves at every turn. So I love this schedule. I think it's one of the best that fans will ever see.
So we've kind of talked about, excluding the schedule for the most of the episode. We talked about the lineup, this projected lineup, what the Sooners are going to look like this upcoming year. But for as far as your predictions, if you want to go win-loss record, stuff like that. And then the big question, does this team three-peat?
They're in a great position to do so. There is the crazy thing about this roster is, you talk about health, right? That's the one thing that you can't truly quantify when you're trying to predict a season. I can't tell you if they're going to stay healthy, but guess what? They didn't stay healthy last year, and they still won the national championship. Jada Coleman and Tiare Jennings have been incredibly durable during their career. I want to say I don't think either one of them have missed a start. I think they've started every game they've been here. That's a good sign when you have those two in the lineup. Jordy Ball is 100% after her injury last year. So it's hard to quantify for injuries, but they have the depth now. If something happens, all right, we'll slide in X player here, or maybe Hannah Core could play here, or Quincy. You've got depth, and I didn't even mention the transfers. So, they're going to lose some games. I want to make that very clear, and I think Patty Gasso wants them to lose some games. Yeah. Everyone wants to talk about they can go undefeated, but this team probably was better, as much as it sucks to say, for losing that game on a Saturday in Austin against Texas.
Yes.
That Haley Dulcini, and they learned a lot because they lit up Haley Dulcini on a Thursday. I think they hit her hard on a Friday, and then when they faced her in the final game on a Saturday, she adjusted and they struggled with it, right? Okay. And she added a pitch that they weren't ready for. So I'm anyone that's talking undefeated, that'd be great, and I'm all for it, but this schedule is not necessarily tailored to go.
It's always good, though, when you lose a game like that, but then you get the last laugh when it matters the most in the Champ Series. So it's always good because, like we did with Georgia, I think the year before, when they walked it off against us in the middle of the season, that was something that it propelled you. And so you learn, I think, a lot more from losses than you ever do wins. And I tell my guys that as a coach and stuff like that is you always find out more about yourself after a tough loss because it matters to you. It means something to you. And I think that for those girls, playing this tough a schedule, when the rubber meets the road, they're going to be prepared, come postseason, come Big 12 tournament, all that good stuff. And I think it only makes them better. When you play the very best, you're going to get the very best. And sometimes you you come up short, but at the end of the day, you learn a lot from it.
Well, and I would also, just in the prediction side of things, I think you're going to see a lot of players play. I think it's going to be tough because you are going to run rule a lot of teams, right? I was looking the opening week. Liberty's a really good team, but there's a chance you could run rule them. Duke's a good team. You could run rule them. So you're looking at maybe 3 of your first 5 games. So I think Coach Gasso learned. Well, she doesn't need to learn anything. She's the GOAT. But I think she started realizing, hey, I want to get some more players in a little bit earlier. But then in that same vein, balancing, all right, are my players ready for the postseason? So rest, refresh versus experience is going to be a fascinating thing to follow. But, get to know names like Kirsten Deal, get to know names like Jocelyn Erickson, get to know names like Hannah Core and Sophia Nugent and Quincy Lilio. They're going to play a lot as this season progresses. But I don't know that they'll be an underdog in any game that they play this year. So that's I think maybe if you put spreads on college softball games, which I don't know if you do, they might be a pick 'em in one game. But even in that, it might not. So that's how much talent they have coming in. I was thinking about, you talk about predictions, and I love the prediction game, but we did Sooners Helping Sooners event a while back, and Patty was the speaker, and the guys were kind enough to have me MC it. And as I say, 2022 is widely considered and debated as the greatest college softball team ever. What do you think? And Patty said, let's wait till 23. So she feels really good. And, as long as Jordy Ball's healthy, as long as Jaden Tiare's healthy, I think they're in good spot.
Yeah, that's what I was that's what I was also going to say is I don't even think it was really cool to see Patty say that, but I don't even think it's arguable that wasn't the best team of all time.
Man, it's tough, right? The only people that have kind of fought with me on it are people that played on that Arizona team, which I can play. Okay, that's fine. You play there. I get it. I understand. But it is a hard debate to be on the opposite side of seeing everything that Oklahoma did last season.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a scary thing to follow.
As much talent.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's what I'm saying. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It could be a scary thing because you may have a team that could end up better than that team last year. Now, I'm not going out there and saying the 23 team is going to put a cap on that one, but it's very possible with the talent that we have coming back. You like you said, you can't predict health and all that stuff, but man, the depth this year is really, really good for this team.
They're really good. They're really good, man. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to get it going, and we'll be there every step of the way. It's going to be a fun ride.
I can't wait to watch. I can only imagine what it's like to be there.
Nerve-wracking, because you're always afraid the bus is going to leave you.
Hey,
if the bus leaves you, if the bus leaves you, then Jackie's mad at you, and I don't want Jackie mad at me. So that's kind of the key for, and I want Coach mad at me. So, but no, with Uber now, if they leave, I'm like, that's fine. I'll get an Uber, so I'll be okay. But
it's true.
Yeah, it's just a well-oiled machine, man, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Chris, we appreciate you for coming on, man. It's always a good time having you.
3-time guest. Anytime, guys. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.